Back to Maya Rockstars. This is part 6. So part 6 here, we're going to go over really saving our file. We haven't saved it at all. So with a Maya file, you don't want to only save a file, you want to save a whole project. So all a project is a series of folders that Maya uses to organize a bunch of files. So in other words, when you save the Maya file, you're saving the geometry, you're saving everything in this scene could be read without a project really so far, because I've used procedural textures and materials that are just solid colors. But once I start adding images to this, if I create images in Photoshop or things like that, those are all externally linked. They'll sit in a source images folder. If I have renders, if I go ahead and render out animations, which will be individual frames, those will render out into the images folder. If I render out, say, a QuickTime movie or something like that, it's going to, or a Play Blast, it's going to save it into the movie folder. And we'll talk about Play Blast later, but they're basically preview or hardware previews of your animation. So anyway, let's take a look at this and see how we can save it before we go any further. So I can easily just save the scene, but right now I don't know what project folder I'm in or anything. Now, since I've created a bunch of project folders already for myself, I will have a whole slew of them to pick from. But let's say I open up my project window here. Now you'll see that it's just going to my default Maya projects folder. So what we'll want to do here is say new. So we want to create a new project. We'll call this Maya Set 1. So you can call this anything you want. You want to call this Maya Primitives or something, or Maya Shapes. Let's just call it Shapes. So this whole project will have the shapes in it. It's going to put it at a specific location. So if you want to save it elsewhere other than in, it'll usually just save it in your user folder, and depending on Windows or Mac, it'll have a tree structure. Usually you'll go to My Documents, Maya, something like that. But you could save this wherever you want, and it'll just say, so I'll just go ahead and say accept. And what will happen is, and before I hit accept here, just let me explain this. So it's going to create a folder named Maya Shapes, and within that folder, there's going to be scenes, assets, images, source images, render data, clips, sound, scripts, all these different folders here. So it just attempts to organize all those different assets that you may at some point add into your project. And you will at the very least need an images, source images folder, and you'll need an images folder to render out. So let's go ahead and say accept. Okay, so now all we did so far was save a tree structure or a folder structure here that is pretty much empty at this point. I haven't saved my file at all. So I'm going to go ahead and save my file now, and if I go to save my scene, it's going to save it. Now you notice it jumped into another project here, so I have something called 3D Faces. So I want to make sure if I have a bunch of other projects here that I set that project. So I'll say set project, and looks like it is here, Maya Shapes. So I'll go ahead and say set. Okay, so now that I set that project, when I go to save this, it's automatically going to default save it to, make sure I set that again, set project. And I want to say Maya Shapes set. So when I go to save, it doesn't want to automatically put me in there. So this might happen to you too. So if it does that, just navigate into the Maya Shapes folder and then go to scenes, and you want to save it in scenes. So all your Maya files you save in scenes. I'll just call this first project. You can name it whatever. So that's cool. So that is it. That is how you create a project folder and save it.